Ideas are like stars. You will not succeed in touching them, but like a sailor on the ocean, you choose them as your guide, and by following them, you reach your destiny. This is the story of the restoration of the Salvage Prince, the last of the Great Lakes steam-powered tugboats. It was built in England in 1923. It's 92 feet long with a draft of 10 feet and is fitted with ice-breaking bows. In 1973, doomed by what is euphemistically called progress, in this case the diesel engine, the Salvage Prince was condemned for scrap. Tugboats, however, are legendary for their refusal to die. And more by cosmic accident than concrete design, the Salvage Prince was born again.
I bought the boat on a very spur-of-the-moment decision. Somehow I managed to find the Salvage Prince fairly easily. I made a wrong turn, ended up driving right up towards its bow, parked about 5 feet from the bow, looked it over for a few minutes. I put in an offer to buy it for $10,000. They accepted, and we were in the tugboat business.
In 1974, Jock Brandis and Suzanna Brender had a romantic idea to live on a boat. They bought the Salvage Prince just as a living space, but Jock's fertile imagination quickly realized the potential of such a boat, and the vision of a completely restored Salvage Prince took hold.
Right. Necessity is the mother of invention. So they say.
The first winter aboard was a true test for visionaries. No running water, electricity, or bathroom, and an ancient wood-burning stove the only source of heat. More out of a necessity to keep warm than any other higher motivation, they kept busy that winter cutting out 15 tons of steel from the old boiler.
Oil is an efficient way to store energy, and so it's preferable. We could, with some clever handiwork, use coal.
A visiting engineer once told Jock that the slow-turning steam engine of the Salvage Prince was built to last indefinitely.
We took a tour of the ship down the pier here, the St. Lawrence Prospector. It has a large diesel engine, and in order to use a crude oil in this diesel, they put it through a centrifuge, and they throw out about 5% of the oil. Now, as far as I'm concerned, we can pick up this oil, which they have to pay to take away. And with only a little bit of extra work, we can burn that in our burners and raise steam with it and power ourselves. So, in fact, we can survive off other people's garbage in terms of our energy.
With the warmth of spring, it was time to clear the decks. The crew is an unlikely trio of nonconformists to be found in Toronto the Good. Jock is a jack of all trades and master of many, an idealist. He's been on occasion a teacher for Cuso in Jamaica, a 60s revolutionary, a filmmaker and inventor. He worked as a mechanic during the Biafra airlift, and has a fund of anecdotes from Haiti, where he was suspected of spying, arrested and nearly sentenced to death. A period, he says, that gave him considerable insight into humanity. Suzanna is the daughter of a Busby Berkeley dancer and a Hollywood songwriter.
When we first went to see the boat in Kingston, If I had ever known that I would be welding, that I would be understanding certain principles of how metal reacts when it's heated and how things can be put together and how engines work, it's sort of simple logic in mechanical things, I would have never believed it. And when we first saw the boat, I just saw it as one vast mess.
Mark Manchester was looking for an alternative to 4 years of university and bleak prospects of meaningful employment.
Jock offered me a berth on the boat, free of charge, in exchange for work done. It sounded very appealing to me. Jock was doing all of these things. He was willing to teach me because he's not the world's expert on everything anyway. He's learning himself.
Restoring the Salvage Prince with little money became an exercise in the art of scavenging, discovering what could be recycled. In this case, steel plate for the decks.
Well, I work now as a technologist, and I've never had any training in technology, except that when I was about 2 inches tall, my father started showing me how you go about solving any problem in the world that was technical. If you've got a mental set for how to approach anything like that, you just break it down into its individual components and find out the answers to each one and put the whole thing back together again, and it works.
During the week, Suzanne works as a research coordinator at the CTV television network offices in Toronto.
Journalism allows you some sort of power of input. It allows you to be that kind of objective observer that you always hope you will be. Like when you call up the government and you say, I'm calling for comment on this situation, and they refuse to comment, you know that they were hoping that everyone would ignore the situation. But now they're scurrying around. You have forced the issue. That's the kind of power that's exciting, not because it's an ego trip, but because it means something's changing. You're almost like an ombudsman for the public. Mr. Bell, please. Thank you. It allows you to fall in love with people over the telephone all the time. Do you know if there's any way I can get in touch with him in either Detroit or St. Louis? Thanks very much. Yeah, right, I'm in the office now. It allows me to use all those little bits of totally useless knowledge, and that's what's great. It's fun.
Jock is a connoisseur of obscure auctions and government surplus sales. In the summer of 1977, a group of Japanese entrepreneurs started scrapping an old barge nearby. Jock instinctively knew that the forward winch would suit the Salvage Prince. What he got was a bargain, a $12,000 winch for $700.
The professional ship rebuilders and restorers, the professional engineers, are people to watch out for, and have proved to be a harassment because I represent a totally different threat to them. I'm the amateur who is doing what they are paid many thousands of dollars to do. And as soon as an anthropology graduate who does film lighting can take an old steam tugboat and rebuild it for, shall we say, $35,000, then the question has to be asked, why did it cost $3 million to rebuild a Trillium or something of that sort? I graduated in anthropology, which allows me to be a keen observer of old John Hall movies. There's nothing that I can't tell you about Dorothy Lamour that you couldn't tell you herself.
Moving the winch from the barge to the Salvage Prince required a mobile 20-ton crane and a little help from his friends.
I guess I was always trained to believe that the best thing to be was an academic. And there are some of us who lose force along the way, and I somehow managed just to slide back down to a more comfortable level, away from all that academic pretension where everyone is desperately trying to publish or perish. I'm a very strong believer in apprenticeship. If there would be some way that we could allow for the personal experience of apprenticeship and still not have that narrow aspect whereby you learn an incredibly narrow range of skills, that would be the ideal. It's the thing for individual people to try and seek out on their own, without government plans or government programs, seek out the kind of elder, experienced people that they'd like to model themselves after and follow them up.
Undertaking the work of restoring an old tugboat requires a somewhat different approach than restoring grandmother's old rocking chair. An Eastern proverb goes, "When you eat an elephant, you take one bite at a time." To view the total mess of the Salvage Prince would be to court madness. All you can do is concentrate Zen-like on one small task, complete it, and start on the next.
If someone asked me what the most difficult part of rebuilding that boat is, at least as far as I've gotten so far, I'd have to say that the hardest thing you have to fight is the civil servant mentality. It's the bureaucrats that you have to deal with, the signatures on the pieces of paper, the stamps on the bottoms of the sheets of paper. They're people who control your whole life if you're living on a boat in Toronto Harbor. They can make your life miserable, they can make your life very pleasant. But I found that almost exclusively they've decided against helping me.
Well, this is about 3 years since we started in the aft crew's quarters. We've tried to make it a lot bigger. We've used a lot of wood from a freighter that called the Thornhill, which was built in 1906, an American freighter. All of the oak behind the bed and on the floor and on the ceiling is from that freighter. It's tongue and groove, and it's kind of nice to have aboard. Before it was, of course, one large room with a small cabin off to the side for, I guess it would have been the bosun or the chief engineer. It would have been very close quarters, as there were no skylights, which we've added. This is going to be then 2 cabins for 2 to 4 people.
On June the 5th, 1977, the Harbor Commission arbitrarily decided that all vessels under private ownership must vacate this area of the dock. The problem was how to move a very heavy boat with no boilers. The answer, people power. And in a scene reminiscent of an old Cecil B. DeMille movie, a cast of extras tugged a tug across the harbor.
And one thing, you must probably do not use the terms port and starboard, because I'm easily confused. Paul Robeson is late, but we've got a tape recording of him, and Carlo is just going out for spray painting. He'll be back in a minute or so. You know the word, Carlo? It's Old Man Ribber.
I wanted to produce films that would shock and enlighten and entertain and do everything all at once. I figured that if Sam Spade could step into the spotlight and come out with some incredible political truth, that the whole world would throw off its shackles and everything would be better. In their infinite wisdom back in the 1880s, the British government set up a fairly stern series of rules and regulations to protect British ships in foreign ports. Now, they weren't thinking of Commonwealth ports, they were thinking of tacky little backwaters in Macau where local merchants and government officials would attempt to blackmail and harass noble British ships passing through on their proper and profitable ways. I'm finding right now that these rules actually protect me because I'm getting as much harassment and as much petty politicking from the people in the Toronto Harbor Commission as I'm sure any small tramp steamer got from any dubious, sweaty Macau governor in 1902.
No, I guess it's not going to be me. It's going to be the owner of the boat.
Jock!
I think he's aware of it.
Just don't think it requires this many people.
Okay. Well, we'll...
And don't anyone cross this until we've gotten it at a better angle. Just stay off the gangplank. Okay, tie it off.
I think it's a fantastic.
Sir, which way do you want to tie this, Jock?
Amongst his other talents, Jock is a skillful diplomat when dealing with the authorities.
Okay.
I wish you wouldn't do that.
Well, sometimes it's the only way to do it.
Oh, yeah. So you're going to be here for a little while, are you, eh?
Oh, we've made arrangements with Captain Mann and Bill Jackson to tie up here for 3 months. Once we're here, we're pretty quiet and normal.
Oh, yeah. Sure, that'll be okay. Just keep an eye on all the people on board here and make sure nothing happens to them, eh? Okay.
Yeah, no,
See you
I've
later on.
made arrangements with ship's repair. We'll be keeping an eye on the ship's program here and so forth.
Yeah, okay, fine.
All right.
See you later on. Bye-bye.
17 people, the dinner ain't got no more paintbrushes. We ran out of solvent blues. What do you do with your shoes when you got the tugboat blues? We ran out of abrasive. We ain't got no more beer. Our boat is listing and they think we're queer. We got the tugboat blues. Oh, we got the tugboat blues. What do you do with your sandy shoes when you got the tugboat blues?
I don't know. Tell me.
Well, you try painting, you paint your bulkheads white. The neighbors, they think you're doing it just for spite. We got the tugboat blues. We got the
trouble required to move the Salvage Prince, it was towed back by a tug a few days later. It is possible to fight bureaucracy by being bureaucratic. By registering as a salvage company, the Salvage Prince could no longer be categorized as a private vessel and was therefore allowed to return to its original berth.
You want to do this one?
Yeah.
All right, so...
Most people dream of alternatives to their lives, but few dream of hard physical work to become self-sufficient and independent. To the authorities, the whole concept of the Salvage Prince was strange, and naturally a certain resentment became obvious. It was a classic case of the individual versus the establishment. Towards Thanksgiving 1978, it became apparent that the Salvage Prince would not be sailing south for a while, due to the lack of funds for the new boilers. And the prospect of yet another Canadian winter brought out the nesting instinct. The captain's cabin was extended to fit Jock's 6'4" frame, and the race began to insulate and finish interiors before the cold weather arrived.
I was thinking of where to weather out a variety of unpleasantnesses. Global plague, intergalactic plague. We're just giving ourselves more and more rope and eventually going faster and faster, and the problem with doing that is that, like a dog on a chain, if he has a lot of chain, he can pick up a considerable amount of speed and eventually break his neck.
The most important comfort consideration for the second winter was the installation of a bathtub. After years of showering and bathing in friends' houses across the city, the first real bath aboard the boat would be an act of pure hedonism.
Okay, that's got it.
Oh, come on.
Those Saturday mornings when these old sailors come by and tell us about the day just before the war when such and so happened, and how happy they are that the boat didn't get cut up into beer cans.
And Jock drove up to the set about an hour late and driving Keir's Delay's Daimler with right-hand drive, wearing pants that were about 5 inches too short and no shirt and a sleepy look. And he walked out with this sheepish grin, and I knew that that was the man for me. The kind of man that could wear a tuxedo and have his face covered with grease and carry it off.
Tell the light. A little song, a little dance.
A little seltzer down your pants. How is it? Yeah.
Warm.
Give me the washcloth, I'll do your best.
You got the washcloth. Can you use a boat instead?
Oh! How about a wire brush? What if we sandblast your back?
No.
In a very human way, many had hoped that the Salvage Prince project would fail, referring to the boat as Jock's junk pile. But at the end of 2 years, even the most skeptical had realized that sweat and patience were making the dream a reality.
I was the youngest faculty wife at the University of Toronto. I was bored. I was hell-bent on being either a good housekeeper or a good mother or something. Maybe I'll have a baby. Maybe I'll become like the rest of those faculty wives. It was a period of gestation, a period of just being dormant and watching and finding out where I was and not liking it very much and being terribly homesick and suicidal and going nuts. I tried a lot of different ways of life, and I tried living on the land because Canada offered that and Los Angeles hadn't. And I tried a lot of different alternatives to sort of be independent.
H.G. Wells once said that civilization is a race between education and catastrophe. And at a time when the world's resources are running out, it is inspiring to find small groups of people to whom genius is not perfection, but originality.
I'd like to go south and try and survive in the West Indies doing a variety of things, doing machining, engineering work, let's say, on boats, ships repairs. Maybe a bit of towing, a bit of chartering, a bit of salvage work, some small cargo hauling. Just being sort of an itinerant tinkerer, traveling around wherever there's a bit of work.
At the end of 1979, the Salvage Prince remains at the dock. Hundreds of man-hours have been sweated out, and hundreds more are to come. When the Salvage Prince eventually steams out of Toronto Harbor, it will be an honest tribute to all inspired and dedicated individuals.